Well, the topic of today is what is an effective life, or how to live an effective life. How do we live an effective life? It's like everybody is living, right? But that is an illusion. Not everybody is living. Everybody is existing, but not everybody is living. Let me say that again. Everybody is alive, everybody is existing, but not everybody is living. What is an effective life? How do we learn to live? But not just to live, but how do we learn to live effectively? Let's ask ourselves that question. Let me ask you that question. What is an effective life? And how have you been living? Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure before God that you have been living an effective life? Are you absolutely sure that you have been living the best possible life for you? Are you really sure about that? Are you sure that your life has been laser effective? So how do we learn to live an effective life? And by the way, what is an effective life? Is living not just about living? Is living not just like everybody else? No, sir. Not more than 10% of the world have learned to live an effective life. Not more than 10% of our world. So what have over 90% of the world been doing with their lives? Well, don't ask me. Most people have been wasting life. Others have been spending life. And only few have been living. Let me tell you, actually, as a matter of fact, what 90% of the world have been doing with their life. 90% of the world have only been doing one thing. They have been trying to make a living. And whenever you are trying to make a living, whenever you are trying to make something, you never really make it. You are trying, because while you are in the process of trying, you are struggling too. While you are struggling, you are not really living. When you are trying to make a living, it means you are trying, you are struggling to make a living. You are trying, so you are not really living. You don't have time to live yet, because you only have time to struggle. My God, help us. 90% of our world has only been busy struggling, trying to make a living. Some people say it differently. Let me say it in a more direct manner. Most of the world, they've not really been living. 90% of people in our world, they don't know what it means to live. You know what they know to do? What they know to do? What they know to do is just trying to survive. It doesn't matter if they have money or not. It doesn't matter if they have resources or not. It's just about knowledge. And it's just about, being skillful about life. We need to learn to master life. Life is a science that only few have mastered. Life is a science that only few have come to understand. And for you to live an effective life, you must understand the essence and the secret of life. Your life must never be about survival anymore. Your life must not be about surviving anymore. You must stop trying to survive and start trying to live, and start to begin to live. You must start to begin to live. You must start living. You must begin to live. You must begin to live and stop trying to make a living. You must stop trying to make a living and begin to live. stop trying to make a living and begin to live. You must stop trying to survive and begin to live. And that is what I want to hand over to you today. How do you live an effective life? And what is an effective life? So, underline the word, or remember the core of the word of this statement that I'm talking about. The subject is effective. So the thing is not, the big thing is not about life per se, because everybody has life. Everyone has life. But not just about having life. Even animals have life. Your dog has a life. So it's not the big deal is not about having life. But the big deal is learning to live it effectively. So we're talking about effective living. Which means we are not talking about a busy life. We are talking about effective life. You see, many people, most people, you know the kind of life they live? A busy life. But busy life does not mean effective life, you see. Somebody was telling me yesterday, this is an African proverb. It's a lady in England, and she was telling me what her mother told her. It's making me to laugh even before I say it. She was having some problem and challenges with her husband because her husband is jobless. And so the mother said, it is when a man is jobless that it becomes violent. Which makes sense. It is a husband that is jobless that is violent, because he doesn't have anything to do, so he becomes violent. Well, what I'm about to say is that having something to do, having a job, or being busy does not mean living. Having a job, that is being busy. So that is what the woman was telling the daughter, that the key to a happy married life is to get the husband to get busy. Get your husband busy. Make sure your husband is busy. Make sure he goes out every morning and comes back to every day. Make sure he goes to work. Just he has to get busy. If he is busy, then you will have a life. That is the philosophy of so many families. If you could get busy, if you guys have something to do, just get busy, then you have life. They equate busyness, being busy, to being effective. They equate being busy to living life. They equate effective living into being busy, They equate effective living to being busy. I'm sorry. I am sorry. It doesn't follow, my dear. It doesn't follow. And as a matter of fact, if you are just living a busy life, most likely you are not living an effective life. Most likely you are not living an effective life, because you are living a busy life. You don't have time to live. When you are busy with something, when you are just busy running after something, chasing something, you don't really have the time to enjoy in the process. It's just like saying you are eating while you are running. You are running 100 meters and then you are eating at the same time. You are running 100 meters and sprint and running. You will not enjoy the process, you see. So being busy does not equate living an effective life. Being busy doesn't mean living an effective life. So for you to really live an effective life, you need to know more than just being busy, okay? All right. So we are talking about how to live an effective life. We are not talking about busy life. We are not talking about a full life. Some people, I've been to a few funerals in my life, in my lifetime. And you know, most people that people regard to have lived a good life, they say, well, he lived a full life. He lived a full life. They say that guy lived a full life. He lived a full life. Well, the fact that he lived a full life, does that equate the fact that he lived an effective life? And sometimes we think, well, maybe the life was not so rosy, but it was a full life. And we think that's at least not bad. It's bad. It's better than most people's lives. So not bad. He lived a full life. But we're not just talking about living a full life. You could live a full life, but a miserable life. You could live a full life, but still not effective. And an effective life is what we're talking about today. So we're not talking about a fast life. Some people just live a fast life and they run after everything. They run after all kind of mirage, run after illusions, run after deceptions. They run the rat race and win the championship in it. But winning a championship in the rat race of life is not an effective life. So you could become a champion running the rat race. That doesn't make you live an effective life. In fact, as a matter of fact, you could even live a dynamic life, but still not live an effective life. So there are people that are effective. There are people that are not effective, so that are dynamic. But being dynamic alone, being a dynamic, all-action kind of person, and doing up and down, just going to making things happen, that doesn't really mean you live an effective life, all right? But the most popular life that people talk about these days, and all the time, people have always been talking about this. They say he lived a colorful life. And for some time, I've thought maybe that's the height of life, for you to live a colorful life. You see all of it. You see the good and the bad, and you just enjoy everything. You just take everything as it comes. And they say, oh, he lived a colorful life. His life was not boring. Yeah, maybe it was not boring, but was it effective? Maybe it was not boring, but was it effective, my dear? Was it effective? So that's what we're talking about. We need somebody that will live an effective life, and we need you, and we want to teach you how to live an effective life. So, how do we live an effective life? Number one, an effective life is not determined by the length of your life. It's not determined by how long you live. It's not the duration of your life that determines how effective your life will be. So the duration of your life does not determine its effectiveness. So some people could live only 10 years of life and they die at the age of 10, but they could have lived a more effective life dying at 10 than somebody who lived to be 70. But most of the time, when somebody dies at the age of 10 or 20 or 40 or 30, when somebody die young, we normally think that that's a tragedy. But is life about longevity or about effectiveness? We should answer ourselves that question. I would prefer to die young. But to have lived an effective life. I want to die young. If the option and if the choice is about living long or living effective, I would choose rather to live an effective life. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. That's what I desire. That is what I would have desired. But unfortunately, I think most people probably would desire to live a long life, even though it's going to be a miserable life. What's the good in it? And that's why I wrote this book. Where is the book? I wrote this book about my friend, my small road that died, right? He died not too old, but 50, 59, but not bad. So he died, maybe like 60 years old. And, somebody said he died young. But this guy lived a very effective life. He started at 15. Lived a very, very effective life. His impact is marvelous. It's great. He left more impact than the other guys who have lived to be 70 and nobody even knows about them. So if you don't have this book, you might want to get it. It's on Amazon. It's on Okada, if you're in Africa, Okada books and all that. So, let's choose. Let's think about it. Is it better to live an effective life and die at, let's say, 30, 40, like Jesus? Jesus lived an effective life because he died at the age of 33, but who wants to compare his own life with Jesus' life? Jesus lived an effective life, though short. So the longevity of life is not what you should be targeting, but we should be targeting the effectiveness of life. If you go on the internet today, you will discover that most people are more concerned about living the long life rather than the effective life. Most people are concerned about their health, how they are eating. They are concerned about sports. It's a big industry. It's a $1 billion industry of sports, eating, dieting, veggie, and all kind of way to just make you to live long. As if living long equates living effectively. Does it equate it really? No, it doesn't. You see, the idea of life is for you to be able to maximize every day of your life so much that it will not matter anymore at what age you go. It will not matter what age you die. So that by the time you go, you will be ready. And you will be so happy. And, heaven will be rejoicing. And, you will be ready. And you will have left such a legacy. And that is much more better. That is much more preferable than to live here for so long and just cause problem for yourself, cause problem for others, be a tragedy to everybody, be a headache to your parents, to your family, to your friends, to your country, be a liability. Why should you live long and be a liability? Or why should you live long and just live in sickness and frustration and misery? Why don't you just learn rather to live an effective life? Why won't you just rather learn to live an effective life? So, what decides the effectiveness of your life? Number one, what decides the effectiveness of your life is your ability to convert your every minute or your every hour into some form of value. Your ability to convert your day, your hour into a value. So the power of conversion, what you do with your day decides the effectiveness of your life. What you do with your hour, the amount of value you're able to create. What is the value chain of your life that you are creating in every hour? What is every hour creating for you? What kind of value is every hour adding to you? That will decide the effectiveness of your life. So you must make sure that you are on top of your time, you are on top of your hour, you are on top of your day, you are on top of every minute of your life, so that you are not just on top of it, but you are on top of it to convert it. You are on top of it, converting it, intentionally converting it into either added value for yourself, or added value for others, or added value in producing some products and some goods that would add value to the world at large, or add value to the kingdom of God. So being on top of your day, being on top of your every minute, being on top of your every hour, and using that will create not just your value, it will create your net worth. It will create your value chain, and that will now decide the effectiveness of your life. So that is one of the most important factors in living an effective life. What you convert, either you are converting your time or you are not converting it. Either you are wasting your time or wasting your life, wasting your time, which is equal to wasting your life, or you are spending your time, which is equal to wasting your life. Spending your life, or you are converting your life, investing your life into some form of value, into your own promised land. Most importantly. Now, the next thing you might want to take note of is that for you to live an effective life, you must actually detach yourself from the stereotypes of our world, from the traditional beliefs about life. You know, the stereotypes and the understanding that the world presents to us as effective living is mostly wrong. The thing that is sold to you as a kid, growing up as the essence of life, is basically wrong. Most of the things that people tell us as the reason for life are mostly not right. So the essence of life and the secret, or the secret of effective living is, and what people call effective living, you must detach yourself from it. For example, let me give you some of these examples. In some cultures, like in Russia, where I am, I live in Russia here, in Ukraine. People believe that you live an effective life if you marry, and not just marry, but you must give birth to a son. So you could give birth to 10 kids, and all of them are girls, and you don't consider to have lived an effective life. You must have at least one son, okay? So you might not have 3 kids or 2 kids, maybe just one son. You are considered as having having lived effectively. So for you to live here in Russia, a man that has lived an effective and a successful life is the man that is been able to be married, get another education, married, built a house, and then who has a garden, who has planted a tree, who has a garden. You have to plant a tree, you've got to plant a tree so that when you die, your tree will be there in your garden, okay? That's what it means here, to live an effective life, to the Russian mind. Oh, man. What a mediocre kind of thinking. What a vanity kind of thoughts, what a kind of vanity thought process. It's empty. That's an illusion. It's an illusion and a deception. So being married does not mean that you are living an effective life. So you have to detach. Somebody like that, people like that coming from that kind of culture have to detach themselves from that culture. Like, I'm an African. Being an African is similar. The people tell you, if you are an African and you are a man, you must, when you are 30 years old or 40 years old, how could you be so old? And how are you? You are not living yet. If you don't get married, have a family, and have children. And most cultures of the world are like this. They tell you that you are here for that purpose. That is the essence of your effective living. You have not lived effectively. I even knew people back in Africa that were well-to-do, doing well professionally, well-to-do, doing well, building a good life for themselves. But because they didn't have a kid, or because they didn't have children, they said, everybody just pitying them. And said, oh, what a pity. Oh, yeah, that guy. Oh, yeah, it's a pity. Huh? Sorry for him. Wow, it's a pity. He doesn't have a kid. He doesn't have kids. He doesn't have a job. What a tragedy. Well, he seems to be doing well for himself, but he's a sad guy. He's a sad guy. It's tragic. It's tragic. No. How many people do you know who have been married? How many people do you know who have kids, who are married, and are miserable? And they are not just miserable on their own, but they are miserable, but they are making their wives that they married to more miserable. And they are not just miserable all by themselves, but they cause misery. And that miserable, the misery, the miserableness to come to their children and to come to their family, they make every other person miserable around them because, somebody said they should marry. They married and make the life of the woman miserable, and make the life of give birth to some children and make the lives of of those children miserable as well. So marriage and having kids does not have anything to do with living an effective life. You know why Jesus said what he said? That if you will not deny your parents, your family, your brother, your sister, your wife, your husband, if you will not be able to deny them, then you cannot really be my disciple. Because living an effective life doesn't have anything to do with your family or with having family, children, or wife, or anything. Jesus actually said to live an effective life, you've got to deny them. You've got to, in some cases, he said you've got to hate them. In some cases, he said you've got to turn your back at them for you to be able to live an effective life. Because everybody was coming to Jesus, they wanted to find out, how do you live an effective life? And he said it. For you to live an effective life, deny yourself, actually, as a matter of fact. So, that tells us another thing about effective living. Effective living is not in self-grandizement. So, effective living is not in self-grandizement. Effective living is not when you make yourself just posh and luxurious and make everything, live a luxurious life and just, just live in your own luxury and make everybody, to envy you. He said you have to deny yourself. That kind of aspiration has to be denied. You've got to deny that aspiration. So that is because in many cultures, grandizement, self-grandizement is the sign of effective living. So if you are living in self-grandizement, people think that yes, you have arrived. Yes, you are having you are. So when you make it and you have a lot of money, people think that is when you are living an effective life, but it's not true. When living big and just living having a lot of money is not a proof that you are living an effective life. So that is also a deception, and that is false. That is false as well. So an effective life is not what people think it is. An effective life is not the life of grandeur, and it's also not an effective life is not the life of fame. Because some people live, they strive to be famous and everything. Well, we know a lot of famous people in the Hollywood and in the cinema industry, movie industry, or music industry. But that's where we have the highest number of suicides. People commit suicide all the time in Hollywood and in the movie industry. Why? Because being famous and rich and famous does not equate and does not equal to an effective living. They've not lived an effective life. That's why they wanted to kill themselves, and that's why they're killing themselves. So fame, money, property, wealth, and all that we are all been striving for and running after is actually not the sign of an effective living, and it's not the sign of effective life. So most of us have been programmed to run after mirage. Most of us have been programmed to run after the wrong things. And most of us have been manipulated by the world and by the expectation of the world. And because of this, I come from a country where, young men and women are being arrested for carrying drugs and, drugs and all kind of doing all kind of atrocities all over the world, because they think if they could live big, if they could get money, if they could get wealth and self-aggrandizement, that means they are going to be wealthy. I mean, they will be going to be respected. They're going to be living an effective life. But you see, they end up losing their life in the process. But they are chasing after the shadow, chasing after illusion, chasing after in their own eyes fulfillment. But fulfillment in life does not come through what people say. People have brainwashed us thinking that marriage brings fulfillment, children bring fulfillment, money bring fulfillment, property and building houses and owning property everywhere bring fulfillment, job brings fulfillment, salary brings fulfillment. It's a lie. Salary is selling out your life, selling out your time. Job is selling out. That is not what brings about fulfillment. Some people even think that it is church, especially in Africa, where I come from. Go to church. Church attendance is what brings about self-fulfillment. Church attendance is effective living. You do go to church? So in some families, the only thing your families and relatives want to know about you is if you go to church. Do you go to church? Okay, good. So you are living a good life. You are okay. You are okay. Do you go to church? Okay, you're okay. Do you serve in your church? Okay. Yeah, then you are good. That is another shadow. Because going to church does not equate personal relationship with God. Going to church does not mean knowing God. And going to church does not mean to live an effective life. There are more miserable people in churches these days. There are more people who are right there in the church and they are miserable. And they are not happy. They are not living an effective life. And unfortunately, so many churches don't even teach their members how to live an effective life. So many churches don't even teach their people what is an effective life in the first place. So many people are just being wasted in churches. People are just being wasted in churches. I'm so sorry. Many people in churches don't even know what their callings are. Many people in churches don't even know they have gifts and talents. Many people don't even know how to accomplish their purpose and dreams in life. Many people don't even know what they were created for. So you could be in church and be frustrated and just be as frustrated as anybody in the bar. So, what makes us to live an effective life? And what is an effective life? An effective life is anchored on the ability to look at your life and see results, but not just see results, but you have to see results that are in line with what you were created to do on earth. So, for example, you could be having results as a teacher, but really you were created to be an engineer. So the results you were having the wrong. Let me tell you a story. It's a story of a friend of mine. This guy was the brightest. He was the brightest in his class. He was the smartest guy. But when the exam came, school graduation exam, like WAEC, we call it in Africa, even though he topped his class for 10 years, it was the top of his class in primary school, secondary school, in high school, he was the top of his class. But when the time came for final exams, he was so smart, he knew answers to a lot of things. The questions that he, because in that culture, he had to pick the questions. So the question that he picked and he needed to answer is similar to another question. So he went and wrote. He thought, let's say, somebody asked you, what is America known for? And there is another question that says, what is the wealth of America? So this guy thought the question of what America is known for was in his mind, it translated to what is the wealth of America, not what America is known for. So he was talking about raw materials and everything and the resources and all that, but he never mentioned jazz, and other things that America is known for. So when the result came, he failed. Even though he was the smartest of all guys, he failed. And when he went to the teacher and the authority, everybody was so distressed and frustrated. Why could this guy fail? How could he fail? And they went and they did a committee and the commission and the investigation, and they discovered that the guy had answered question number 22 instead of answering the question number 2. It was wrong. You did well. You gave an excellent result, excellent answer, but you got an awful result because you did not answer the question. If the question had been question number 2, yes, you would have been the best, excellent, distinction. But you gave a distinction answer to the wrong question. Because you are giving the answer of question number 2 to question number 22. You did not provide the answer to question number 22 that you were asked. You've got to repeat another year, my dear. That is how most of us have lived our lives. That's how most of us are living our lives. And we are thinking that the most important thing in life is just to have result. It's just to have result. Yes, it is true. Effective life must be measured by results. Effective life must be measured by concrete results. But only results in the area of your calling. Only results in the area of your destiny. You know, you might have results anywhere else as well. But you want to fulfill the mandate of heaven upon your life. You want to fulfill the assignment for which God created you in the first place. You want to first of all be fruitful and be effective, living for what God has created you to live for. So if you are created to be an inventor, just like the case that I mentioned the other day, that this guy, brilliant mind from Nigeria, created to resolve all the problems. Every one of us is created to resolve one problem or the other in our world or in our country or in our society. So this guy was created to be an inventor, to bring answers to the numerous myriad of problems in the Nigerian nation is facing and encountering. But instead of this man to be, so he went to his pastor and told the pastor, I invented this, I came up with this, and the pastor said, yeah, those things are good, not bad, but just leave, yeah, God will take care of those things, those are worldly, those are just things of the world. You need to make sure people are getting saved. You need to get people saved. You need to become a pastor. That is what matters. And the guy became a pastor for maybe 5 years or so, became frustrated, spending 5 hours in the church every day. Can you imagine what that guy could have come up with if he were to be spending 5 hours in the laboratory every day? Investing himself into his destiny, converting 5 hours a day into his products, he would have solved the problem of that country. So many problems in that country. But those people who are supposed to be solving the problem of Nigeria, people who are supposed to be solving the problem of cancer, people who are supposed to be resolving the problem of unemployment or poverty, everything that we are facing in the world, some people have converted them to pastors. Some people have converted them to evangelists in the church. Because they think only when you get people saved, then you are serving God. Then you can only serve God. You can only serve God when you are a pastor, when you are in the church full-time ministry. It's a waste. And God would not say that you've lived an effective life because you served in the church. If God meant you to serve as an inventor, to serve him as an inventor, and you are serving him as a pastor, you've missed the mark. You've just missed the mark. You've just missed the mark. You've just missed the mark. You are just like that, my friend, that was supposed to give answer to question number 22, and he was answering question number 2. Everybody has their own area of calling. God packaged you for something from heaven. God customized you from heaven. God made you custom made from heaven. You were packaged to deliver an assignment on the earth. You were packaged to resolve a problem on the earth. You were packaged for a specific duty, for a specific calling, for a specific assignment. You were packaged specially from heaven to resolve one problem or the other. You are not just here to struggle to try to find out what you are here for. No, he sent you here for an assignment. He sent you here for a purpose. He sent you here with a mandate. An effective life, therefore, is not when you have children. It's not because you have children or not. People are pitying guys who don't have children. But if that guy doesn't have kids, but is having destiny, he's just like George Washington Carver. He never got married and he never has children. But George Washington Carver is remembered in the history, in the annals of history of America till tomorrow. As long as America exists, the nation will remember George Washington Carver. Not by his children, not by his wife, not by his family, not by his wealth, not by his fame, not by his church going, not by his whatever, money, property, children, marriage, or anything, or house he built, but by the effectiveness of his life, by the fact that he carried out his assignment. He didn't have children, but all the people who had children in his time have been forgotten. But he cannot be forgotten. All the people who married during his time have been forgotten. But he can never be forgotten. Why? There's a difference between an effective life and a life that is lived by the stereotype of the day. So if you go to a church, I don't even know why you need to go to a pastor and be telling them that you have an invention here, an invention there, or you need to, they want to go and lock you up in the church and say you become a pastor. If any pastor tells you that, say bye-bye to that church. You need to pursue your calling, because some pastors are so selfish and they are so egocentric that they want you to only build their vision. They want you to only use your gift to build their calling. They want you to use your talent. They want you to become a pastor because they want to use your gift to build their own ministry, to build their own church. They want their church to be big at your cost, at the expense of your gift, at the expense of your calling, at the expense of your destiny, at the expense of your life. Wake up, somebody. I'm a pastor, but it's not fair. It's not fair. You don't just use people. Take advantage of them. Use your place of authority. Oppress them. Use them to build your own ministry. And tell them they cannot have their own vision. And tell them they cannot have their own calling. And their calling can only be within your own calling. We can only be with your own ministry. What about if it's called to become somebody in the marketplace? What about if it's called to have a para-ministry? What about if it's called to do something the whole world, to change the economy of the world? What about if it's called to change the politics of the world? What about if it's called to do something else? You want to privatize people and their gifts and their calling. That is wickedness. So you will answer before God at the end of the day. You will have to answer before God. And that is the only thing that will decide the effectiveness of your living. Not the only thing, but the primary thing that decides the effectiveness of your living is, have you lived according to the script that God Almighty wrote before you were even born? And some people will like to also do the same thing for you, but in marriage, especially when you're a woman. Some people say, have you heard that maybe some of you have heard this doctrine before? I've heard doctrine. Some people say that a woman cannot have a calling. That a woman cannot have a calling. And the only calling a woman has is the calling of the husband. I said, Shineke, my God, wow, whoa, what is that? Where is that coming from? What kind of pit of hell is that coming from? My God, have mercy. Don't they know that before you were somebody's wife, you were a human being? Don't they know that before you were somebody's wife, you were already created with some gifts and abilities? Don't they know that before you were somebody's wife or somebody's mother, that God has given you a destiny and a purpose? Don't they know that in Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 4 and 5 it had said that before you were in your mother's womb you were already been called, even maybe before your husband or after your husband has been born, you were already been called. And then he said you have been anointed, you have been ordained as somebody. In the case of Jeremiah, he was ordained as a prophet already while he was still in his mother's womb. The same with you. While you were still in your mother's womb, God has anointed you. And as a matter of fact, he created you to send you here to fulfill a particular destiny for you. That is why there is no marriage in heaven. So when you go to heaven, God will not tell you, okay, when you come to the judgment seat, you say, okay, you take your husband by the hand. Okay, I didn't do anything on her. God will say, why? Because I was married to him. Where is he? Well, he will not be there. Because there is no husband and wife. In heaven, no marriage. You have your own calling. You have your own destiny. You have your own mandate. And you must fulfill it. And some other people say you just have to have kids. If you don't have kids, then it means you didn't fulfill any, you don't have any purpose. Tell me something. So you want to tell me that the only people who have purpose are the dogs? Because the dogs do better at having kids than any woman do. You want to tell me that the only people who have purpose on earth are the pigs? Because the pigs do better job at having children than any woman do. Don't you humiliate women like that. Don't you ever trivialize women to the level of reducing them to just having children. Don't you ever despise a woman, a creation of God like that. And to value them only by either they are able to have children or not. Don't you ever do that. They are first of all the likeness of God. They are first of all the image of God. They are first of all the daughters of God, princesses of God. Don't you ever measure them by if they married or not, or if they have children or not. Please.